just to say that the concept that we employed is to look at the fact that no country can totally operate in times of major emergency just by the state apparatus alone, and that volunteers play a critical role in whatever any state would do in terms of providing relief response and overall humanitarian assistance for the country after a major impact. So it's with that view that dated back to about 2008 that the ODPEM started looking at the process of volunteerism in disaster risk reduction. So we have been working since then to ensure that we would have built out a national volunteer corps. Whenever time we have a national disaster, we would bring all the volunteers in Jamaica under one umbrella, which would be managed by the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, not to interfere with their regular volunteer operation outside of emergencies. But when there is an emergency or there is a catastrophic event, then there is a controlled mechanism to ensure that we are getting the greatest bang for the buck, so to speak, so that all the volunteers would be at the base of the ODPEM, so that we could put them out into the fields to assist with damage assessment, helping us in terms of our relief response in-house, you name it, with all the aspects of the disaster risk management processes, helping with our relief distribution, and also to ensure that we have a good core within communities that would form part of and also support the CERT teams in communities, which is the community emergency response teams. So that was the thinking in terms of having volunteers as a part of the national disaster risk management set up in Jamaica. So we decided that a part of the process as well that training would have been needed, and we were expecting as well that we would be pulling from across a number of disciplines in country. Retired nurses, persons who are engineers, doctors, you name it, that we would be getting those persons being a part of the national volunteer process. So they will be bringing skill set to us as well, and out of that as well, we are expecting that we would get persons as well to assist in training areas that we probably would have some deficiencies as a national organization. Even before we decided to formalize the volunteer program, persons were constantly calling and to say how they can become, especially during an emergency or after an emergency, to say, we are passionate about this thing, we are patriots, how can we assist the country in this endeavor? And they have always asked, do you have a volunteer program? How we can volunteer? So now you find that we're getting a number of persons registered. We have a volunteer database which is managed out of our HR division, and we have a coordinator on board who is looking at the entire volunteers program.
Well, the project was necessary, even the concept of the project, because it's still ongoing, because what it does is that it creates this platform, this database for volunteers to be registered online. So you have the skill sets, you have the various trainings and expertise that these volunteers has, so we can draw upon the volunteers in any emergency, any localized situations that we may have. Another good thing about this project is that, we are different. We have different municipalities, we have different parishes, and across the borders of some of these parishes, we may have an event and we can just draw upon volunteers in a neighboring parish with respective skill sets. So I think it creates that good database so that we can use the various expertise. The volunteers welcome the program. More than anything else, some of them expressed that this program gave them it legitimized them, because they received an ID, an identification card stating that they are part of a national body. So it gave them some amount of esteem, some prestige and pride. The trainings they received, it was welcoming. They got trainings that they would have otherwise have to pay for, and they got recognition in their respective communities to state that these persons are trained as disaster risk managers in their own rights. So it was very timely and welcoming by the volunteers. Some persons were trained as shelter managers, first aiders, damage assessors. I think they were trained in psychosocial support and a whole suite of training. And the fact is that one set has been trained and the training is ongoing. We have another set of training for my region, my parish, later on this year. I think it's sometime in May or April. So it's an ongoing training exercise. For sustainability of a project like this is very important. I think for my parish, and I hope that it will be replicated nationally, is that we have planned a training of trainer session. So we look at some of these volunteers with specific skill sets and the ability to replicate these trainings so that it's continuous. Also, I have even expressed with some of my other coordinators to perhaps look at projects, donor funding that can continue to train these persons in years to come. For example, the first aid and CPR training, after 2 years, you'll need a refresher course. So we have to look at getting funding, even from our government, to reserve some amount of funding for the sustainability of this initiative, because it is very important that we have volunteers, because in any kind of emergency, any kind of disaster or situation, we can't rely on just national resources. We need these human resources to aid in managing and responding to some of these disasters that we may have.
The volunteer program, which was initiated through ADPEM and the CDMA partnership, was timely because it is necessary, because persons have always wanted to volunteer and some of them, they were not trained. So this program provided an avenue to have persons trained and have a better understanding of what disaster management really entails. When persons were approached to become a part of this program, they readily accepted, because being a volunteer means a lot to persons. So they willingly signed up and was ready to be a part of the program, especially when they were told that training and equipment would be a part of the outcome of this training. In order to sustain this program, what we in St. Catherine have decided to do is to, because persons were trained in shelter management, and that is one of the areas where we have a lot of persons coming forward to volunteer, to assist. So we intend to recruit these persons to be a part of the shelter program across the parish. And we have started to approach them, and they are willing and ready to utilize the information that was imparted to them during the training sessions. Because of the location and how the terrain is within the parish, persons, and because there was really no benefit of such being offered to these persons, we had a we had problems getting persons to come forward. But being told that they would get IDs and a lot of other things to ensure that, yes, because persons want to give back to the parish and to the country. So we weren't able to offer these things to them as a corporation, but the partnership provided an avenue for these persons to be rewarded, not monetary, but with the information and other little things that was provided through this program. Persons willingly volunteer because people want to serve.
Yes, it was indeed necessary because persons want to give of their time and their efforts. They just need a little padding and a little structure in doing so. I have benefited greatly in terms of the skills and knowledge gained, and it was presented in a way that I am able to impart it to other young persons and other persons within my community. They now know that I have these skill sets, and so they can call on me at different times for different things. As it relates to the parish, it is indeed a plus because the more volunteers you have, you can't have too many volunteers for the parish in terms of the need that's there. So having these persons trained will indeed be a plus for the parish. We learned first aid, such as to assist persons who might be injured. Injuries include spinal injury, head injury, stuff like that. Choking, fire safety tips, so you're able to utilize the fire extinguisher for different types of fires, etc., etc.